Hello guys, how you doing? How you doing? Brother Mason here. Obviously, we all have heard about what happened to George Floyd in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. I just found out an article online from the BBC, and it's actually headlined George Floyd: What happened in the final moments of his life. So obviously, I'm gonna have to say a little something about this because obviously this is injustice that has been perpetrated to an innocent man, and this is not the first time this has happened. It's been happening for a long time. We know that. Yes, even though it's on the other side of the Atlantic in America, but we know that racism and police brutality has been happening all over the world. Even the UK, where I am, literally all over the world. So this is really, really something imperative. Anyway, I'm going to try to read the article, which is, like I said, from the BBC News website, and it's entitled George Floyd: What Happened in the Final Moments of His Life. Okay, it goes like this. The US has been convulsed by nationwide protests over the death of an African American man in police custody. George Floyd, 46, died after being arrested by police outside a shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Footage of the arrest on 25th of May shows a white police officer, Derek Chauvin, kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck while he was pinned to the floor. Mr. Chauvin, 44, has since been charged with murder. The key events that led to Mr. Floyd's death happened within just 30 minutes. Based on accounts from witnesses, video footage, and official statements, here is what we know so far. It began with a report of a fake £20, which is about 16 pounds 20 in British pounds. It began with a report of a fake £20 bill. A report was made on the evening of 25 May when Mr. Floyd bought a pack of cigarettes from a Cup Foods, a grocery store. Mr. Floyd had been living in Minneapolis for several years after moving there from his native Houston, Texas. He had recently been working as a bouncer in the city, but like millions of other Americans, was left jobless by the coronavirus pandemic. Mr. Floyd was a regular at Cup Foods. He was a friendly face, a pleasant customer who never caused any trouble, the store owner, Mike Obomayele, told NBC. But Mr. Obomayele was not at work on the day of the incident. And reporting the suspicious bill, his teenage employee was just following protocol. In a call to 911 made at 8:01 p.m., the employee told the operator he had demanded the cigarettes back, but he, Floyd, doesn't want to do that, according to a transcript released by authorities. The employee said the man appeared drunk and not in control of himself, the transcript says. Shortly after the call, at around 8:08 p.m., two police officers arrived. Mr. Floyd was sat with two other people in a car parked around the corner. After approaching the car, one of the officers, Thomas Lane, pulled out his gun and ordered Mr. Floyd to show his hands. In an account of the incident, prosecutors do not explain why Mr. Lane thought it necessary to draw his gun. Mr. Lane, prosecutors said, put his hands on Mr. Floyd and pulled him out of the car. Then Floyd actively resisted being handcuffed. Once handcuffed, though, Mr. Floyd became compliant, while Mr. Lane explained he was being arrested for passing counterfeit currency. It was when officers tried to put Mr. Floyd in their squad car that a struggle ensued. At around 8:14 p.m., Mr. Floyd stiffened up, fell to the ground, and told the officers he was claustrophobic, according to the report. Mr. Chauvin arrived at the scene. He and other officers were involved in further attempt to put Mr. Floyd in the police car. During this attempt, at 19 past 8 p.m., Mr. Chauvin pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side, causing him to fall to the ground, the report said. He lay there face down, still in handcuffs. That's when witnesses started to film Mr. Floyd, who appeared to be in a distressed state. These moments, captured on multiple mobile phones and shared widely on social media, would prove to be Mr. Floyd's last. Mr. Floyd was restrained by officers while Mr. Chauvin placed his left knee between his head and neck. "I can't breathe," Mr. Floyd said repeatedly, pleading for his mother and begging, "Please, please, please." For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, Mr. Chauvin kept his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, the prosecutor's reporter says. About 6 minutes into that period,
the looting and the recklessness that went on.
All right, let me just pause that. About 6 minutes into that period, Mr. Floyd became non-responsive. In videos of the incident, this was when Mr. Floyd fell silent as bystanders urged the police officers to check his pulse. Kuhn did just that, checking Mr. Floyd's right wrist, but couldn't find one, yet the officers did not move. At 20 past 8, Mr. Chauvin removed his knee from Mr. Floyd's neck. Motionless, Mr. Floyd was rolled onto a gurney and taken to the Hennepin County Medical Center in an ambulance. He was pronounced dead around an hour later. On the night before his death, Mr. Floyd had spoken to one of his closest friends, Christopher Harris. He had advised Mr. Floyd to contact a temporary jobs agency. Forgery, he said, was out of character for Mr. Floyd. The way he died was senseless, Harris said. He begged for his life. He pleaded for his life. When you try so hard to put faith in this system, a system that you know isn't designed for you, when you constantly seek justice by lawful means and you can't get it, you begin to take the law into your own hands. So that's the BBC article, obviously trying to reenact factually the events that led to George Floyd's senseless racial death, and in Minneapolis, in America, in Minnesota. And like I said, this event happened in America, but this could have literally happened to anywhere else in the whole world. And to be quite honest with you, this is not the first time a lot of black people found themselves brutally arrested, fatally losing their life in the hands of the police. Now, yes, you might say there was nothing wrong with what the shopkeeper did. If somebody came with counterfeit money or counterfeit currency, the first thing you do, and you follow protocol, is to call the police. Somebody is using fake money to buy some goods, and you can demand the goods back. And if the person does not give you back the goods, you can call the police. There's nothing wrong with that. But when the police came, apparently Mr. Floyd was in a car with other two of his friends, and straight away the police pulled their guns on these guys. Now you tell me there was no threat that was shown to this police officer. Yes, there was 3 black men in a car, but was there any reason for pulling up a gun? You probably could understand if one of those guys took a gun out and pointed at the police officer, but nobody pulled a gun at him. So he arrived at the scene, the police officer. The first thing in his mind is that he is under threat. And this is a narrative that is repetitive all over America and all over the world over. And like I say, this happens in the UK. I live in the UK. It happens all over the world. A lot of police officers, they are so violent and aggressive when they try to talk to black people or black men. And there was absolutely no reason for the police officer to pull up a gun. So that's number one. Number two, as you've heard from the story that I've just read there was absolutely no reason for the police to put further force on this guy. He was in handcuffs and he was in the police car. If somebody is in handcuffs and they are in the police car, they are not a threat to the police, and this is two policemen. Why would they pull him out of the car and let him fall to the ground out of the car? This does not make any sense unless if you're being violent and aggressive, unless if you meant to cause further harm to the individual. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the thing that has been happening for a very, very long time. And police brutality against black people really needs to stop. I really thought I had to say something about this, because obviously as a black man, and I always give you motivation and inspirational videos, but this is not something that you should not be, we shouldn't just ignore it. We should not just say just because it happened in America, it's an American business. We should not say just because it happened to George Floyd and he was using counterfeit currency, it's got nothing to do with us. The man lost his life for £16.20, $20 bill. That's not how you lose your life. You do not lose your life for a $20 bill. And the police officer who actually killed the guy, apparently he had his knee on his neck for 8 minutes. Surely, if somebody is in handcuffs and they're facing to the ground, why would you put your knee on their neck for 8 minutes? They're in handcuffs. They are not a threat to you. The only way you can do that is unless if you want to cause further harm or you want to kill them. This is a murder, a first-degree murder, and this is not something that we should not tolerate. I call upon every single black people, wherever you are, this is not something that we should not ever accept. And I know that I do not talk about these things more often. Normally, I give you like motivational, inspirational videos, but when injustice and when error has been done, we need to call it out. This is racism at first hand, and this has been happening all over the police force, and this has to stop. All right, thank you. It's your boy Mason. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like I always say, keep smiling and always be happy. Even though I know there's nothing to smile about, there's nothing to be happy about, because this is a very sad story, sad situation. My condolences goes to the Floyd family, everybody who is involved with this man, and yeah, it's very sad. Anyway, it's your boy Mason. All right, take care.